We have Conrad Jackson with us again, talking about safety for wildland fire. And learned a lot last time and want to know how we can now rest at ease for our property, preparing our property from fire. Some like gutters, I notice a lot of full gutters and people don't think about fire. So how does the fire travel?
So when we have a wildland fire, your Joe average, like a regular wildland fire, not the LA urban
Yeah.
conflagration, but like we have a wildland fire here, like you experienced with the Dosi fire and stuff like that, or people have been around here for a while, the Indian fire. We have a lot of ember fallout. So embers are what destroy 80% of the homes that get destroyed in a wildland fire. And so there's a really big misconception from folks that, and I see it all the time here in Prescott, like, well, I don't live next to the forest. What do I have to worry about?
Yeah.
Or I saw somebody on social media this week say, well, I live in downtown Prescott. What do I have to worry about? Well, embers will carry for a mile, 2 miles easy. I mean, we saw that with the Legato fire back on Easter, right? I mean, there were people having large pieces of debris landing 2 miles away. Luckily it was wet that night, so all the embers kind of died out as they're flying. But in a summer wildland or a dry scenario, like if we had a wildland fire today, it's so dry. Those embers are going to still be very active when they land a mile, 2 miles away. So downtown Prescott's just as much at risk as the person who lives in the edge of Cathedral Pines or something like that.
I thought, well, they had films, obviously, in social media in California where a palm tree, they even around a fire, and it's burning.
Yeah.
Because embers got on it and lit the whole thing up.
Exactly. And we have a lot of, the number of people who use some kind of cedar or cypress, hedge and stuff like that. I mean, those things are catcher's mitts. If you think about it, and you know this well as a landscaper, especially the cypresses that people like to use for the hedges, and you can't clean out underneath them. So over the years and the decades, all that old detritus builds up in there. So how do we mitigate that stuff? How do we best prepare our home to withstand that ember storm? Because we're not talking a couple embers. I mean, you've seen the footage this week.
Yeah.
We're talking, what if 10,000 cigarette butts landed on your back deck today?
Yeah.
You think one of those might do something? So
Yeah.
so let's be prepared for that. And so, like, when I do an assessment for a house, and the fire department offers free assessments, I will come out.
Really?
And yes, yeah, people just sign up. They can just go to prescottfire.org and they go, I want a defensible space inspection, and I will come to their house and we'll do that, and I'll work with those homeowners to kind of figure it all out. When I do that assessment, I basically start at the house and work my way out. And I look at how hardened is that home. That's the term we use, home hardening. Like, how durable is it against ember fallout? I start looking at the roof. So is it a Class A asphalt shingle? Is it a ceramic roof? Is it a metal roof? Those are all higher caliber protections. We actually still have houses in this community, wood shake shingles.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. In Yakashba, like a super thick neighborhood, Yakashba has folks that have shake shingle
That would
roofs.
take nothing.
And so that and the terrifying thing about it is it puts a risk to the entire neighborhood, because embers land on that roof, light that house on fire. Now it's the first house fire in potentiating more fire spread. So that's the cool thing about, like, what we're talking about is, if I improve my home, not only does it improve my ability for my home's defense against wildland fire,
Yeah.
but I'm also protecting your home as your neighbor. So it's less likely to start on my property and go into your property and things like that. So doing defensible space work is one of those really cool things that it not only improves my survivability, but it helps my neighbor. And there's not a whole lot of natural disasters. Like, if I put sandbags up around my house for a hurricane, that doesn't help you. That only helps me.
Yeah.
So going back to the house, how hard is that home? What's the siding look like? Stucco siding's way better than wood siding. I have a house that was built in the 80s. So it has wood siding. So I have to be very mindful that as it ages and starts peeling away, that I nail it back in place. I caulk stuff so there's not little gaps for embers to be able to go in. A lot of stuff that was built back in the 80s, the vents for like for the attic vents, they have metal screens behind those louvers. And back then, a lot of that metal screening was 1/4 inch screen. Well, the science shows us that a 1/4 inch gap, embers will go right into that attic. Gosh, it's been 2 years ago, there was a fire over in Laguna, and all the houses burned up from attic fires. It was a 200-acre fire. It did like $500 million in damage. Yeah, so $500 million in damages, because they're all, it's Laguna houses, so they're all $5 million homes.
Yeah.
And tore out a whole neighborhood just where all the embers were going into all those attics. So now, because City of Prescott adopted a wildland urban interface building code,
Yeah.
all of our new construction has 1/8 inch mesh, and 1/8 inch mesh is way, way better at protecting from ember flow into an attic. So that's a home hardening aspect. So when I'm doing my inspections, I look and say, oh, hey, you've got 1/4 inch. You should either you do it or hire a handyman or whatever and get in there and put that better screening in there. So we look for stuff like that. We look for components that are plastic that would get melted through. Skylights, a lot of skylights aren't like a double pane glass. A lot of them are plastic. That's a risk. Embers land on that.
And it'll melt it through.
And melt through, and now your home is open. It's like having an open window, and now embers are landing inside your house. So that's a problem. But we look at that house, we look at what kind of doors, what gaps, how tightly sealed is your home from letting embers land in different places. The rain gutters. It's all well and fine to have metal rain gutters, which most of us do. But have you cleaned them lately? Yeah. Are they full of pine needle litter, oak leaf litter, juniper fallout? Those are the most common things. And the gutter covers are relatively inexpensive to have put in. I mean, in the grand scope of things. So I would highly encourage, and that's actually one of the things we inspect for, is whether or not you have metal gutters, and do those metal gutters, if you have overhanging or tall trees, do they have some kind of gutter cover on it? Because it's a good thing.
I know I was on had a campfire, just barbecue, little fire at a place, hanging out, and we had some wood, a little bit of ember flew out. Right in pine needles, you started to see it smoke. I'm like, how is that even possible? I didn't see the cinder go, and it was just a little bit of area that we raked up, and it was just sitting there. It wouldn't have done very much, but it's just how fast. Even like you go down 17, you have those fires from a chain drag. That's just how fast that happened.
When I was on the Prescott Hot Shots back in the early 90s, we had a night where we chased 30 plus fires on the Beeline Highway. Somebody dragging a chain from Phoenix up to 30 of them all night long. So, some of them were small. They were, just a couple yards, but there were other ones that were dozens of acres, and for a long night.
That's goes to show what a spark can do. And then, like we talked about, underneath plants, we go do firewise things to clean out underneath, and we show, like, look under here, and you'll see pack rats, like, and it's like, man, if you just had one spark, that it's just engulfed so quick, and to keep that clean.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you keep clean. So the science shows us that if your house has a 5-foot gap from whatever that burning source is, like the radiant heat hitting it, it's in really good shape. It really, really helps. So you want nothing combustible from the edge of your house out 5 feet. Now, what does that mean? That means no plants, no hedges, no rose bushes, no lilacs, no vegetation. But it also means the other stuff that we inadvertently put there. I mean, the plants we're often intentionally putting there for, landscaping, but stacking up lumber underneath the deck because it keeps it out of the weather, or especially this time of year, a lot of folks still have wood stoves and fireplaces, and so they don't want to go all the way out to the shed to get more wood, so they put this big pile of wood next to the house, right next to the back door or wherever, which if we had 2 foot of snow on the ground, probably wouldn't be any big deal, but we don't. Everything is super, super dry. We haven't had any moisture in 2 months, so you have you have something that can burn that has lots of nooks and crannies and is intended to burn, and it's sitting right up against your house. So we see tons of that. And then kind of going back to your leaf litter thing, if you look around your house, you have like the inside corners, like the nooks inside your house. If you start looking, you'll see that's kind of where the leaf litter builds up.
Oh, yeah.
So it shouldn't be a big jump in logic to know that any place around the edge of your home where you're seeing accumulation of leaf litter, pine needle litter, stuff like that, it got there is because of where the wind blows. So you have that little eddy, that little corner, and it spools up, and that's where that leaf. Well, now if we have a wildland fire today and the wind's blowing, where are the eddies around your home? The eddies around your home are, oh my gosh, it's going to take that ember and put it right in the exact wrong spot if you didn't clean out the leaf litter.
So back to our earlier podcast, you talked about information, you're getting this message. So tying to that, it'd probably be smart before you leave to walk around your house, any garbage cans, anything you got, move it away. Blow off the leaves, like you said, before you
boogie out of there. And I mean, really, as a proactive homeowner, you really should be doing that on a regular basis. And especially right now, because it finally got cold enough and we've had a couple of good wind events that even those trees that were still holding on to some, lingering leaf have all come off. And so everybody's yards have a certain level of decay and detritus all over the place. And so getting in there with that blower and blowing it out is a great idea. So that first 5 feet, super critical. And then we have some failure points that do destroy homes because a lot of homes were built with wooden decks. Nowadays we see a lot more Trex, which can still burn. It has wooden, support system, but it's a little more resistive. But those wooden decks are really, really vulnerable. And so if you get, like I said, 10,000 embers land on that deck and it's wood, it's going to burn. It's going to burn right up to your house. And that's a problem. We see wooden fences with wooden gates. It is super dry, and people really don't think about that. And so one of the things Conrad, I don't want to spend how much money it would take to replace my entire wooden fence. Well, don't replace the entire wooden fence. Your gate's attached to the house in all likelihood, right? So swap out your gate, put a metal gate in. And so at least if that fence catches on fire, 20 foot away from the house and starts burning like a big fuse towards your house, it hits the metal gate and it's done.
Gotcha.
So
after 5 feet, what's your next step?
So after 5 feet where you have nothing combustible, you're looking at the 5 to 30 zone.
Okay.
And the 5 to 30 zone, you want to really, really limit how much vegetation is there. So we all live here for a reason. We like a certain look in Prescott. I mean, we love Prescott. I've been here for 45 years. I mean, I love the way my hometown looks. So, but we need to manage it. We need to be intelligent about what we're doing. Because if that fire's coming into my neighborhood on the ground or even in the canopy, I need not to get to my house. So, mature trees, anything that's over 6 foot or 6 inches around, I should say, should be limbed up 6 feet. So all those lower branches should be limbed up. And I'm talking about a mature tree. I see a lot, and I'm sure you have too. I drive through neighborhoods and they have like some kind of scraggly oak brush. And the oak brush is, 7 foot tall, and they read the manual. The manual says limit up 6 feet. And so you lollipopping it, right? So it's like a big trunk and like this little Dr. Seuss puff at the top. That's not our recommendation.
I gotcha.
So like if you want to keep the oak brush because you've got quail in your neighborhood and you want to have them to have a little bit of habitat, find the happy medium. Have islands of oak brush that are only 100, 200 square foot in footprint. And trim it up, limb it up. And if you can trim up a couple of the lowest branches so you can get that blower in there and get that leaf litter out of there. Because really what you're looking to do is try, if we have a grass fire or some kind of ground fire, we don't want it to get up into the canopy. So you can take that oak brush or even the small junipers. Like I have a piece of property that's got some small junipers. They would look goofy if I trimmed it up 6 feet. So we just tell them, like, take out the bottom third. Just knock off a couple of those bottom branches so you can get out there, clean it up, and limit how much of those branches are down close to the ground.
Gotcha.
So it can't get from the ground up into the brush, up into the higher canopy. We call that ladder fuels when it's making that transition of carriage fuels, when it makes that transition. And so we want to limit that ability. And so I do want you to have plants in your yard, but you need to take those little islands I talked about of having brush. They need to be at least 15 foot apart. 15. Canopy break.
Okay.
Canopy breaks.
Gotcha.
So that's a decent,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good spread. So, but that's intentional. That's if those embers land on this island of brush that we have and it catches on fire, the likelihood of it propagating to the next one, we've helped limit that. We're trying to tamp it down. So like I said, 15 foot apart, islands of brush that are 100 to 200 tops, and limb up the lowest branches on brush, mature trees up to 6 feet. And you can drive around town. You can see good examples of this and poor examples of this. And then that's to 30 feet out. Now, past 30 feet to 100 feet or wherever your property line is, follow exactly the same principles as far as limbing up, trimming back, but the gaps for your islands, they only need to be about 6 feet. I tell people, like, when they're kind of evaluating that area, I go walk around. If you're walking around with your arms out to your sides and you're constantly having to pull your arms in to get in branches, you probably should trim those branches back. And you, by doing that, if we have a fire that's very distal from your home and it's moving into your neighborhood and it's going through the vegetation as opposed to like the ember fallout. If it's coming through the vegetation, you've limited how much fuel is available. You've taken some of its oomph out, and now you're at 30 feet and you've taken even more availability. And now, like I said, that final 5 feet, if you don't have anything flammable and you have a well-hardened home, that bush that's burning here, it's going to hit it. The house ain't going to like it. But the house, the materials that it is, especially if it's stucco, can take that hit. You and I couldn't stand 5 foot away from that bush while it was on fire, but your house can take that hit, and that's good.
And plus, you got time to fire department to get there, and it's not like it's controlling it a lot by doing that.
And you bring a great point. If we're coming into a neighborhood, we have like an early wildland fire, something we still feel like we can put personnel in front of, and I have to roll onto a street and we have 6 houses that have done mitigations. We know we can get our personnel in there. We can drag a hose line through because you've opened it up. I've got 5 foot of working space right next to your house. Plus you've opened your entire yard up to me. I can get in there and operate. Whereas if, like, say, one of those 6 houses on that street has done nothing and it needs 12 hours worth of work, we don't have 12 hours to do anything with that home. So we're going to hold our ground on those houses that have done
work. Seriously, ones that take care of the property, keep it up. Those who can get in, save it, and the other ones like, hey, I have this house I got to let one house burn. I can save a bunch of them. Or
exactly. It's a triage procedure.
Yeah, for sure.
These are houses that we can make a stand at. This is a house that is actually going to put our firefighters
with a life for it.
Exactly. So you're doing yourself a favor. You're making it an opportunity for those firefighters to be able to get in there and do their job.
That's interesting. Not only are you looking to, doing fire-wise to clear your property, save your property, but also your neighbors, and most importantly, the life of a fire department, a firefighter, if you keep it clean.
Everybody wins.
I mean, you go to someone's house to put a fire out and it's well taken care of, you're going to be more eager to fight someone than someone that's just let it grow.
Well, that homeowner that did something has a vested interest in the survivability of their home. The person who did nothing to it, if they didn't care to improve their home against this threat, what's my investment level? So I'm going to roll with the people that really cared about their property, and I'm going to do the best I can because I know I don't have the time to be able to mitigate that house to the level it needs to be mitigated.
Wow, that's great. Well, Conrad, that's great. This is Rodney with Zemerscapes. Follow us on Facebook. Click the link below. All this information we have, if you can get to it, on how to keep your house safe, property safe, and where we can continue to teach and train. Thanks for tuning in to Landscaping with Zemerscapes.
We hope you found today's episode helpful and inspiring to your landscaping projects. For more tips and resources and to learn how Zebrascapes can help you transform your outdoor space, visit our website, www.zebrascapes.com. Until then, happy landscaping.